I never had to do an earnings call with Wall Street for baseball, privately owned. I definitely had to do earnings calls with the owner, definitely had to do meetings with limited partners, definitely had to say, here's where we are, here's where we're headed, here's what we're going to do if we miss. We'll trade them all. Here's what we do if we are overperforming, we'll sign them all. It's a very simple business, to tell you the truth. The Atlanta Braves are a public team. I think you know that. I think you know that Terry McGuirk is the CEO of the Braves. I think you know that. The chairman of the Braves. I think you have that in your head. I think you're aware in Atlanta that they have this area outside of their stadium. They did all of this development and they called it the Battery. They called this area, it's a mixed use development. If you've been there, they've got stuff to do, places to stay, money to spend. It's a destination way more than 81 times a year. I think you know that so many other teams are trying the very same thing in what is a copycat world of business. Build me a stadium, but I need mixed use development around it. Let's do a public-private partnership, but we're going to build a ton of stuff and we're going to take the money from it. Why is this important? Because the Atlanta Braves are succeeding in a way that every other team in sports would like to emulate, and no one else is even close. The Braves' mixed-use development, the Battery, has been such a great success. The Braves' revenue is $311 million. That's a 7% growth. That's pretty good, right? We'd take that. 7% growth year over year, not too shabby. That revenue is subject to revenue sharing. When the Braves announce, which they announce publicly, but the league knows, the union knows, the baseball revenue, local baseball revenue, $311 million. Revenue sharing is based on the local component of that amount. But what about the mixed-use development? How much money did they make from that? Well, they had to announce it, and they did. They announced a 56% increase year over year, and they made $27.2 million. I would just like to point out that when you've got quarterly earnings of revenue of 27 million, when you have the ability to generate that amount of money, forget the fact that it was the All-Star game, not the point of this conversation. The point of this conversation is that all that money that the Braves had, do you remember when Terry McGuirk said that, hey, we had our powder dry and we're ready to pounce at the trade deadline, but nothing really made sense to us? And now Terry McGuirk says during the offseason that we want to be and will be a top 5 payroll, that we are going to be very aggressive in free agency. The Atlanta Braves have become a financial behemoth in a market that you would not expect to be in that position. And this is not me poo-pooing in any way, poo-pooing Atlanta. It is me telling you that when you look at geography, when you look at teams and where they are, the Atlanta Braves should not be a top 5 payroll team. However, they're able to generate this amount of revenue that, if they choose, can go into the baseball team. They can choose to take revenue not associated with revenue sharing and move it to the expense side of the baseball team. Think about the way Terry McGuirk said it to the analysts. He said, what we're doing within this organization is truly unique, not only in baseball, but in all of professional sports. The continued momentum and strategic interplay between our baseball and real estate remains remarkable, and it reflects the long-term vision that has set our organization apart. He got it wrong. The long-term vision, that's not what sets you apart, because every team wants to do it. Every team has that same long-term strategic vision and hope and desire, except you did it right. The execution of the battery, the success of the battery within your city, somehow it just hit. It's not able to be replicated. I'm a guy who tried to replicate so many things with our stadium in Miami. I'm a guy who tried to replicate things when I was on Wall Street, trying to replicate best practices. You go to conferences, you go to meetings, you're always trying to learn best practices. What is the way that I can be better in order for me and my company to be more profitable, to generate more revenue? That's always the point. What do you do when you have a unicorn? At least be honest about it. The reality is you can go to all these different communities, all of whom are trying this. Miami's trying it around their soccer stadium. Inter Miami's attempting it. We thought we could do it around Marlins Park. St. Louis has a village that was an example of a great mixed use development around a ballpark. And guess what? Not many years later, not helping at all. Look where the Cardinals are. How do you address this if you're Major League Baseball? This is very important as we head into collective bargaining. Because while it is true that the Chicago Bears want to do this in Arlington, that the Commanders are trying to do this, that, listen, the Rays are going to try to do it in Tampa. Just think about what was announced in Washington with the Wizards and the Capitals. Think about what the Cleveland Browns are doing by moving outside of the city into their area, Brook Park. Everyone is trying to find a way to avoid giving money to a pot that allows your competitors to better compete against you. Everybody would rather keep their money outside of baseball and into their poche, into their pocket. If you are Major League Baseball and the Players Union, and you are trying to figure out how to deal with payroll disparity, how to deal with revenue disparity, is there a world where that non-baseball related real estate revenue would be part of revenue sharing? Do you believe that the Braves would have had an opportunity to have this development but for the ballpark and but for Major League Baseball? My argument, which has been like passing gas in the wind, like the Big Lebowski, John Goodman inhaling the ashes, it has gone unheard. I have argued for years, both when I was within baseball and even after I've left, that to not count this revenue is a disservice to the concept of revenue sharing. Because you have to believe that if you go to a particular city and you have an owner who's in real estate and that owner is doing development in a city without sports, that has to be differentiated from the development that a real estate owner or any owner does around sports. You have to make that distinction. I'm not asking for the revenue from people who develop shopping malls where they don't have their teams. I want the revenue from the shopping malls and the mixed-use development around where they do have their teams, because the difference has to be baseball related. I don't see how you could look at it any other way. On the other hand, I can't get one person to agree You don't think that the Mets, with their casino money, should be sharing that? I don't even know if they're going to have casino money, Coca. I really don't.